I have a lot of little pieces of Echoes of Home. There is the yearly activity that runs for a month, which means it generates 30 new pieces a year. Plus, there's the random little pieces that I find myself compelled to write every once in a while. And a lot of these eventually wind up in the story. Sometimes I have to link them together. Sometimes I have no idea how they're going to link together. Like, there's one piece. Apparently, I am one of the few people that I know that has grown up knowing what Cosmopolitan magazine is. It was never my thing to read, but I would see it in the drugstores and the grocery stores. It was sort of it seemed to bill itself as a women's guide to dealing with relationships. And by deal with, I mean gossip over or try to establish, or in some cases try to destroy. They always had splashy covers like 10 tips on how to keep your man. Um, Look for things to see if your relationship is good. Take this quiz to find out if your man is cheating on you. That sort of thing. And I had in mind a woman who decides to befriend Tsu'na, Tsu'na being a strong woman and all, but she's a Cosmo reader. Small town USA. I figured it would stick around there for a while. So I get this little piece. She's reading a survey out of the magazine having to do with whether or not the relationship is stable. This piece would be from Tsu'na's point of view. Beth moved on to the next question. Have you ever wanted to hurt your husband? I thought of a time when he was showing me one of the puzzles he did on his phone. It involved drawing lines on the screen to connect dots in ways that the lines did not cross one another. It's really pretty simple, he had said. You just take care of the most obvious ones first, and then the less obvious ones become more obvious. He then drew a line that twisted around over half the screen. How is that obvious? Well, it's obvious to me. Yes, I answered Beth. I have. So I sort of saw that combined with another piece. I mean, I wrote that independently, and I wrote another piece independently, and then I saw a potential connection between them. The yearly event was providing one-word prompts every day, and one day the prompt was taken. Now, of course, when I first saw that, I was thinking of the Liam Neeson movies, where his daughter gets kidnapped and possibly sold, just like in Christie's book. I used it slightly differently, though, in the story. I have spent the morning writing a maple chair carpenter recipe. We have been replacing Sam's tables in the bar with sturdier ones, but now there is a need to replace chairs. Husband offered to write it, but I felt I should since I was the one who broke a chair. Last night was my bouncing shift. Husband was at a table talking with Trevor, the electrician, about one of his projects. He wants to try to make what he calls a fuel cell, like a large battery using lightning and earth shards. He has hoped Trevor would help him control the voltage with a capacitor so that the wires he tests will no longer explode in his face. It amuses me to see it happen, but he would rather make the fuel cell work. I do not know the names of all the men who come to the bar. I have not had reason to talk to them. Husband tries to mingle some, but it seems he does not have much to talk about with them. Eddie, the animal doctor, does not come to the bar often now, after some of the men got angry with him for pestering me about my ears. I do not know much about Mitch, except that he offers to hang my beret and coat on the wall for me when I come in. I did not know Hank's name before last night, though I had seen him in the bar before. Last night he came in with a woman and ordered at the bar, and Sam called him by name. I had not seen the woman before, and I do not think Sam knew her. Hank and the woman took their bottles and joined the men around the pool tables. They chatted for a while, but the woman broke off and came back to the bar. I was reading at the end, away from the pool tables as I sipped a Coke. The woman settled next to me. Hey there, you all alone? I looked up from my book. I work here. You're the waitress? I am the bouncer. She looked me up and down. Okay. Her gaze passed over the room. Does that mean you know the guys here? Some of them, yes. Anyone I should get to know? I thought you were with Hank. Oh, Hank's okay. He's just kind of... She waved her hand in the air. I can probably do better. How about that one over there? I followed her look to the table. The one in the plaid shirt is Trevor. No, not him. The guy he's with. I turned to her. That one is mine. She turned to meet my eyes. She gave me a small smile. She pushed away from the bar and walked over to the table. She rested her hand on the chair near her husband. Hi, this seat taken? Husband turned away from Trevor and blinked up at her. I set down my glass and my book. I walked over to the table and picked up the chair she was touching. I held it by the back and one leg and crunched it to pieces. Husband nodded. Yeah, looks like that chair isn't safe. He smiled up at the woman. Guess you'll have to find another one. He turned back to talk to Trevor as if nothing had happened. The woman stared at me with large eyes before going quickly back to the pool tables where the men were quietly watching us. I gathered up the chair pieces and headed toward the back room. I paused to say to Sam, we will be replacing chairs as well as tables. He simply nodded with a smile. Hank and the others were laughing at the woman as I left. Hank was saying, you tried to hit on her husband? He was much more amused than offended. Perhaps he did not know her well. Perhaps I should tell husband to only sit near flimsy chairs in case I need to break more. So from those two pieces written independently, I got the bright idea of the woman who tried to hit on Steve, thinking that Tsu'na was a strong woman and deciding to be her buddy. Because Tsu'na really wants a buddy. Entertainment may ensue. Plus another couple things that connect that we will see later. Lots of these were written with no real plan in mind, just filling in the prompt. Totally independent of each other. Here's one that I thought was fun. Telling. Exploring Tulsa tells me things about this world. Husband said it's only the 47th largest city in the country, so if I keep finding new things in it, it means there are even more new things elsewhere. We made almost everything we needed in Eorzea, but it seems Earth people do not. Aside from the food stores and the clothing stores, I also saw stores that sold televisions, stores that sold mattresses, stores with strong smells that sold tobacco, and many others. Some stores were not as obvious as others in what they sold. A place called Cody's Culture Club looked like a bar or a restaurant on the outside, but did not show a menu. It merely had bright signs that talked about when it was open. It seemed to have windows, but I could not see through them, as if they were covered with something. If the club wanted to be secretive, I decided to be secretive too. I went around the club to an alley, changed to ninja, and stealthed. I followed a man into the club through the front door. What I saw at first made me think of the Beehive in Yulmore, though much dimmer, with the low seats laid out facing stages on which people danced. Then I noticed that the people on the stages were all women, that some of them had no clothes, and that some were in the process of taking theirs off, all while dancing or moving around tall poles. Husband had once mentioned strippers. I suspected I was now seeing them. It explained something he had once said, how he was surprised that people dancing at the Beehive were wearing more clothes than he expected. Some of the dancing looked very skilled, but unless I wanted to be a stripper, it did not seem useful to me. I would not want to dance for the men in the club. I do not know if I would want to dance for husband like that. Perhaps I will try sometime to see what he says. I slipped out of the club and back to the alley, then left Sneak. I had not looked around enough, though, because when I turned I saw a small boy staring at me with his mouth open. We looked at each other for a moment before he said, "I'm telling." I turned to look up and down the alley, but saw no adults, so I did not know who he would tell. When I turned back, I saw he was looking me up and down, his mouth still open. I realized that since I was wearing my ninja armor rather than my Earth Normal overcoat, he had seen my tail. I squatted down in front of him so he could clearly see my ears as well. "What will you be telling, little boy?" His mouth worked a bit before he said, "A cat lady with big knives just appeared out of nowhere." I had confused and upset a hare, even if it was a small one. But children like stories, and tell stories, and adults know they tell stories. I had seen that in the library. I had even told them stories. So I decided to tell a story of sorts. I stood and changed to summoner, wearing my ruby cotton robe of casting. "What will you be telling, little boy?" "A cat lady with big knives appeared out of nowhere and changed clothes in front of me." I summoned my carbuncle, Glamour to Efreet. The flaming creature hovered at my shoulder. "What will you be telling, little boy?" He did not say what he would be telling. He simply ran away. I changed to my Earth Normal beret and overcoat and left the alley. Later, when I was sitting on a bench eating an eclair, I saw the boy again holding a woman's hand. He saw me, pointed at me, and started yelling, "Mom, that's her! That's the cat lady with knives and a big book and a monster made out of fire!" The woman and I looked at each other. Then she sighed, made herself smile for the boy, and pulled him along, saying something to him I did not hear. I told husband about this later. "Wait, you went to a strip club?" Some of them I don't quite know where I could work in. This one I actually had in mind. I start the story from Steve typing in his journal, talking about his new experience on Earth. But I don't talk about what actually happens. This was an attempt to talk about what actually happened in case, I ever decided to make, I don't know, a webtoon, a live action version. Who's to say? This one is called Crunch. It took some time for husband to learn the Eorzean alphabet when he arrived in my world. I am not sure why. Upon coming to Earth, I found that Eorzean Common is very similar to English except for the letters, which seem to have a little one-to-one match. Yet he did not learn Eorzean letters quickly, while I was able to learn Earth, correction, English, correction. Name of it, English letters, Roman alphabet. Roman letters easily. I know he is smart, but perhaps he is not very smart in that particular way. So he did not do much reading in Eorzea except for his journal. He did write many notes in English on paper he had to buy. We did not learn before coming to Earth that we could write in the blank pages of our journals with enchanted copper ink. While we still do that for new recipes, we now mostly keep our notes in Google Docs. And I did not know, when I first came to Earth, how to read English. When we found the golden circle near our house in the lavender beds, husband declared it would take us to a new world with new things and new adventures. So I agreed to step into it with him. There was an odd change to the air, and then the house was gone. The lavender beds were gone. We found ourselves in some woods. He was quite pleased by this. See? A new world, a new place to explore, one that neither of us knows. Do you know where we are, husband? He turned his face to the heavens, spread his arms wide, and with a big smile loudly proclaimed, I have no idea! I looked around. This new world did not seem too different from the one we had left. Plants were green, the sky was blue, the clouds were white, and the sunlight was mostly yellow. Husband was still talking. This is what adventure is all about. We need to explore. There's probably new people, new places, new monsters to fight. There might be new combat classes. Hell, there might even be a new magic system. Why, we might... He stopped. I turned to look at him and saw he was staring at something on the ground, looking much less happy. He bent to pick it up. It looked like a slip of paper, though I now know it was very thin plastic. He contemplated it seriously. I approached to see. I did not yet know Roman letters, so I did not know the large letters on it read, Crunch. I have since seen Crunch bars in May's grocery. I asked, what is it? A candy wrapper. What is a candy wrapper? A wrapper for candy. He turned to a distant roaring sound, tossed the wrapper aside, and headed into the trees. I got the wrapper and examined it. It smelled like chocolate. I hurried to catch up with husband as he stalked away. We made our way through the trees until they roughly ended with a field in front of us and a long dark strip between the trees and the field that made me think of Guardian outposts. It was gray with yellow lines running along its length. It seemed to be made of small stones that had been pressed flat. This is a road? I asked. Yeah. What is it made of? Asphalt. He was not looking at the road, nor was he looking at the large truck disappearing down the road to the left. Instead, he was looking at a green sign with white letters at the side of the road to the right. I did not then know it said, Tulsa, 50. Do you know where we are, husband? He sighed and sounded oddly weary as he said, I might have some idea. So yeah, I don't usually write Steve and Tsu'na stuff from a third-party perspective. I may be doing that in what I laughingly refer to as Book 5. You know, when I finish what I laughingly refer to as Books 3 and 4. There are random pieces that I've written that I know I'm going to fit in, I just don't know where. such as this one, which I think is going to go into book 2. It's funny, Christy, in her Tuesday stream, was talking about a romance scene she had written in her book, and she couldn't bring herself to read it on stream, whether out of embarrassment or out of her commitment, which she, or at the very least her assistant Steve, associate, friend, said in Discord about trying to tone down the smut on the channel. And then, of course, I got her to read aloud a story about cubes having sex. But still, I don't do sex scenes in Echoes of Home. I don't particularly want to do them at all. I don't think I'd be very good at it. I don't really want to become good at it. But aside from that, Echoes of Home is supposed to be journal entries. And yes, I grew up with the idea of the Penthouse magazine letters section where people would write in with all these detailed descriptions of the sexual encounter they had. I don't see people doing that in real life. It is not impossible, I suppose, but I can't imagine people writing sexual detail down in a diary. Correct me if I'm wrong. Feel free to confess in this channel that you keep sexual detail in a diary. I will humbly admit my error. But it's not going to happen in Echoes of Home. And the fact that I wrote for it, that is available on Wattpad. The two characters answer. Tsu'na says, "Our moments together belong to us, and my husband belongs to me. I do not want to share." And Steve says, "Time I spend writing about sex I've had is time I could spend having more sex." Priorities. And that's all I have to say about sex scenes. Which isn't to say there isn't romance, but all the romance happened in Eorzea, and the story starts in Oklahoma. So all the stuff from Eorzea you see is going to be flashbacks, recollections, anecdotes, like this piece called Bold and Reckless. And since it's a Tsu'na's piece, it starts with some Googling as usual. Word for finding courage. Steel oneself. Pull oneself together. Psych yourself up. Grow a pair of balls. Word for not showing fear. Bravado. Stoic. Unfazed. Stiff upper lip. Bravado. A bold manner or a show of boldness intended to impress or intimidate. Stoic. Being calm and almost without any emotion. Husband has spoken of being scared shitless when thinking about our place in this world. He does not usually show it. I do not think this is bravado, at least not with me, though bravado might describe what he showed to Dewey Brower and his friends. Stoic does not seem to fit, as I can tell he feels things about me and about his projects and about people we meet, particularly about me. Yet he does have a way of showing when he needs to steel himself to do something, when he is about to do something that for him is bold and perhaps reckless. I have observed this pattern. He has not done it often, or perhaps I have not noticed him doing it. Perhaps he is not aware that he is doing it. It is a long, slow inward breath, followed by a shorter and slightly shaky outward breath. He will do this before the bold and perhaps reckless thing, and then will do that thing. I only observed it 3 times in Eorzea. The first was when he had gotten his first gladiator quest and was going to, for the first time, swing a sword to kill something. He had told me he was going to do this. I was certain he would be all right, as every gladiator does it. I had done it myself, and the similar quest for every combat class I learned. Still, while the creatures he needed to fight were mostly harmless, it was perhaps possible for them to hurt or kill someone who simply could not use a weapon, and he had not used one before. So we went together out the gate of Nald and looked out over the creatures there, marmots, hornets, and shrews. He studied the marmots. He took his breath. He let it out. Then he raised his sword and advanced. He did not die. He might have died had he attacked the nearby giant tortoise, but he was not that bold or reckless, at least that time. The second time came after, and not before, the first time he died. We had been fighting in what he called a fate in Lanaskia, an instance of monsters appearing that need to be killed. The same energies that bring the monsters to places also seem to make people in the area weaker, so that what would be a group of easily defeated monsters instead became a challenge to those who approach. There were rewards and prestige for dealing with the monsters, so it is a typical adventuring task. Sometimes, though, 2 fates happen at once in the same area. That was what had happened to us, that while we were fighting one set of monsters, another set appeared, so that we had twice as many foes. A normal response to this is to run out of the area and regain one's strength, then reconsider the matter. But husband did not yet have my experience and instincts, or perhaps he was simply too focused on the creatures he was fighting to notice the new threat. I could have healed him from a distance, but I failed to see he was not following me, and after that he went down fairly quickly. I saw the terror on his face as he was struck again and again. The monsters lost interest in him once he fell. I saw his body disappear. Since we were in a party, I could find him on my journal map. He was at Alda, likely his first home point. I teleported there and found him in the Aetheryte Plaza, sitting on the ground with his back to the stone, staring silently ahead of him. I joined him. I remembered my first time dying and understood. Being told Heidel's gift keeps us from returning to the ethereal sea is not the same as experiencing coming back from death. We sat together there for a while. Then he seemed to come to his senses. He said there was a place he wanted to go. We took the airship to Gridania. We hired chocobos to take us to Falgord Float in the North Shroud. Since he did not yet have a company chocobo, and I did not have a mount that could carry 2 people, we walked west from there. It was a long walk, past the slugs on the road, past to the zoo, or is it zoos? Into the increasingly cold land of Coerthus, until we came to the Ishgardian Observatorium, the very tall tower Ishgard uses to look to the stars for answers and to the skies for dragons. Husband had not been there before, yet he knew the way. We climbed the many, many stairs to the top. We went out onto the roof. Husband shivered a bit in the cold air. He stepped to the edge and ran his gaze over the sky. I approached him, wondering why he had needed to come to that rooftop. I heard him take a long breath in, then let a shorter breath out. Then he stepped off the roof. We have what I think of as an instinct, or perhaps a part of the echo, that tells us not to jump from certain heights. We simply do not do it. Which means any height that we can jump from is one that will not kill us. I had jumped from high places in the past, or sometimes fallen from them, and not died. But I did not do it for fun, and I did not understand why husband did it then. I could only watch him fall and reach the bottom in an explosion of snow. I could see from his status in our party that he was still alive, though badly hurt. I could have flown Boreas down to him, or walked down the stairs, or returned and left him to his foolishness. Yet somehow at the time I suddenly felt I had something to prove, and it was the fastest way down. I landed next to him, not as hurt. He looked at me, and then he started to laugh. When it appeared he would not stop laughing soon, I went inside to sit and warm up. We jumped from many different places after that. The cliffs of western Coerthus, the platforms of Zenith and the churning mists, the peering stones in the fringes, the observatory in Lakeland, and others. Husband pointed out that it seemed as if each area had a particularly high point to jump from, almost as if by design. I did not seek these points out as eagerly as husband, but I did follow him off of them, at least once at each point. There was, I must admit, something very unique about the feeling of falling, of watching things go swiftly by, of having the wind tear at my clothing, of feeling my stomach act strange. The pain at the bottom would go away, and the memory of the fall would remain. He seemed amused and enthused by each new fall, though the long and the short breath did not occur again. He simply flung himself off. The third time it did occur was when we were fishing. We were at Cape Westwind in western Thanaline, sitting on a cliff facing westward over the ocean. We had been trying to catch a fish known as a Titanic sawfish, to satisfy a request by Wawalago and Quinimsa. It was not going well. The fish is difficult to catch, and without great skill is only found in the morning. We had spent an entire day trying, and at that point simply sat at night, watching the moon come up over the horizon. The reflection of the moon was a long path pointing to us. The stars were rather clear. It was a rare, peaceful moment in our lives. I heard the long breath and the short breath. I wondered what bold and perhaps reckless thing he was planning to do. Then his hand rested on mine. I withdrew my hand. Before he could say anything, I moved closer to him. Then I placed my hand on his. Within a few days we were sharing an in-room. Within a few moons we were wed. That was the last time I observed him steeling himself for something in Eorzea. He did bold things, he did reckless things, but he did them more naturally without having to psych himself up for them. Last night, I observed it for a fourth time at the pit. I was bouncing. He was sitting at the bar sipping a cider. I heard the long breath and the short breath, and wondered what bold and perhaps reckless thing he thought to do in a bar on earth. He studied the bottle in his hands, then looked up. Hey, Sam? Yeah? Can I borrow your truck sometime? I'd like to teach my wife how to drive.